Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another video. What I thought I'd talk about today is the problem with penalties in Gaelic football. I think this is a pretty big topic in the GAA community. A lot of people disagree with it, but a lot of people agree with it. Mostly, you know, supporters of counties who have won penalty shootouts. But as we know, there's one or two counties who are completely against it. But anyway, I'm going to give you my thoughts on it and what I think of it and what I do to change it, really. I think at the very beginning, for a few years, I've always kind of been like, yeah, look, I don't mind it. You know, I never really thought about it much. I always thought that extra time would be enough to win a game. But as we've seen recently, it hasn't. You know, I think Gaelic football has gone down a road where it's starting to get pretty boring to people. For me, anyway, I can't watch it. I think it's so unbelievably boring. But don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing better than a good game of Gaelic football. But recently, it's been so difficult to watch. Teams have gone down a more defensive route. They don't want to take risks or anything like that. Outside of like the likes of Dublin and Kerry, who are just like animals at the game. Because of that, penalties have become more regular. I don't think there's like much skill involved in penalties. It's mostly luck. If you didn't know already, I think the biggest victims of this penalty shootout thing has to be Armagh. Armagh have lost 3 penalty shootouts in the last 12 months. It is unfreaking believable. Their recent penalty shootout loss was against Monaghan in the All-Ireland quarter-final this year, okay? Before that, they lost in the Ulster final to penalties. And then last year, as you probably know, they lost against Galway in the All-Ireland quarter-final again to penalties. It's clear as day that, you know, Armagh fans, Armagh supporters, Armagh players definitely do not want this penalty thing anymore. I feel Armagh probably are taking more time out of the game, out of the actual game with Gaelic football to practice penalties, which probably doesn't belong in the Irish sport. Armagh are haunted by penalties. I bet you one thing, that's always going to be in their head whenever it comes to penalties. They're just going to be like, nah. It's like Mayo in an All-Ireland final. The pressure is always going to be on them to win it, you know, that kind of way. I know for an inter-county team or a player who takes penalties, you definitely have to set aside time either outside of training or during your training session. It's like free taking. But the thing with free taking is that's part of our game. Hurling frees and football frees are part of the Gaelic game. Penalties aren't. Penalties really aren't part of the Gaelic game, you know. They were taken from soccer or English football, you know what I mean? I kind of wanted to take a deep dive into penalties and why I think it doesn't require skill. I think free taking is a freaking skill. Free taking, 45 taking, 65 taking is a skill. You have to put hours upon hours upon hours of practice in, you know, to be good at that. You know, you see all the good free takers. Dean Rock, unbelievable free taker. Conor McManus, unbelievable free taker. They have to put aside hours upon hours to do that. I don't think you have to do that for penalties. Now, I think you do to some degree, but definitely not as much as taking a free. Obviously, you have to be able to kick the ball into the net. But that, I think that's it. That's the only bit of skill that's needed, is being able to hit the target. You're what, like 10 meters out? All you have to do is hit the target, and it's a luck. It's completely up to wherever the goalkeeper jumps, you know? For the goalkeeper, it's literally, God, I hope I can dive the right way. As Ben Foster said in an interview before when he saved that penalty for Wrexham, don't quote me here, but he said something like, you just jump, don't you? And that's it. As a goalkeeper, you just jump and hope for the best, and that's all you can do. And as a kicker, you just have to kick it in the general direction. That's why I don't think it should be in Gaelic football. Taking an aspect of an English game and putting into the Gaelic games, I just don't think is right, considering that, you know, you've been battling it out for 70 minutes in normal time, 20 minutes added on, so you're basically playing Gaelic football for 90 whole minutes. For it then to all come down to luck, I just feel I don't like it at all. Really don't like it. What would I do? I'm spouting all this crap, I'm being like, oh, get rid of it, you know, and all that. But what would I do? You have a few options here, okay? You have a few options. You don't have to go down one route. Number 1, and I think it's the most popular, golden score. For anyone who doesn't know golden score, it's basically next point wins. That's what it should come down to. That's it. Next score wins. It's like when you're playing soccer back in the primary school days, the bell is being rang and you have to go back into class and someone just shouts, next score wins. It doesn't matter if you're 10 goals to nil. It always comes down to next score wins. And I think that's what the GAA should do. It's so unbelievably simple. Why do I think it would be good? It's all or nothing. I think it would make the game way more interesting. It's exciting, you know. Next score wins. People will be dying. Players would be doing anything to make sure that the other team doesn't score. And I think that'll make the game way more interesting. People would be putting their bodies on the line. Huge tackles would be going in. Show character. It would show heart. It would be the game. It would be the love for Gaelic football. How bad do you want to win this game? How bad do you want it? Not down to like shitty luck. You could put a 10-year-old boy against an inter-county goalkeeper and the 10-year-old could still score, you know. It's all about luck. I think that's the way they should go, but that's only my first option. Back in 2022, I went to the Camogie Munster final. I believe it was Cork versus Clare. This game was drawn after extra time. They added on another extra time. 60 minutes played, then extra time was 10 minutes a half, but then this new extra time was 5 minutes a half. The second extra time was enough to get a winner, you know what I mean? Cork won in the end. I've never seen the likes of that before, ever. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, what is going on? I was like, perfect, they're gonna go for a replay or whatever. I won't lie, I think everyone was dying. That's the one thing, everyone was cramping up and all that. It was unbelievable to watch, because again, it was nearly a case of goal and score, because one score would be scored and like you're running out of time, you know, like you literally have 10 minutes to make up your mind. I think they could go down that route. I think you're just trying to avoid a replay, or at the very bare minimum you have like a free competition, because that definitely requires more skill than penalties. That's not luck. I think this was like experimented maybe 6-7 years ago. If you don't want to do the goal and score, or if you don't want to add on a second extra time, do a free competition. It's basically penalties made by the Gaelic games, you know. I do a free competition until someone misses, you know. That would be so interesting. It wouldn't even be a case of first to 5 or whatever the English one is. It would be a case of first one to miss. Let's be real, like the GAA is all about money. We know that, because the GAA go, they're all about the money. I think they'd rather have a replay, because that brings in more money than extra time or goal and score or a free competition. In my opinion, I don't think penalties belongs in the game. I think it's definitely starting to show in this day and age that game of football is definitely starting to become more safe. Players want to just go side to side and wait for the opening to happen, instead of like taking a risk, and because of that, games are being drawn much more regularly now. It leads to people being unfairly knocked out of the championship. I think my methods of it are very good. There's 3 valid things you could do to make this way more interesting than what it is. But yeah, that's my feelings on penalties in Gaelic football. Really hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you did. Have a good day. Goodbye.